Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. You never know what kind of surprises we have in store for you, but we've got a good one here, and this guy is from the Pittsburgh area. And Mark Mancini, if you're watching this video, then you'll feel very much at home with this, because Dale Zeller and I are going to talk all Pittsburgh sports. So, first of all, Dale, tell me about your time here at Cooperstown.
I'm on my way back from some meetings in Albany, and I said, if I'm going to be this close to Cooperstown, I'm coming to visit.
You the man, I know that.
We've been wandering.
Well, I got news for you. We have too. I got this whole area blanketed pretty well. So, you know, what's interesting as we've talked is you're a security consultant, and I used to do it. So, tell me a little bit about your security thing first.
So, I actually got in the business in 1972 when my father started a company, and I was in the Navy for half a dozen years, came back, and joined the family business. And since 1983, this is what I've been doing. So I do a lot of training and a lot of work with the industry associations, and I've inherited all my gray in the process, and that's why I'm on my retirement tour now, getting ready to end it at the end of the year. So
I could only imagine. I worked in that business and accumulated a lot of gray, and of course I've been in the broadcasting business, Dale, for 42 years. So that's attributed as a sports writer as well.
Ooh, there you go. So absolutely.
So let's start about your visit to Cooperstown. What have you been able to get out of your trip to the National Baseball Hall of Fame?
Well, I'll tell you what I like about these kind of things is you're able to feel the history of the game. And you know, it doesn't matter if you're a Pittsburgh fan or you're from anywhere in the country, you're able to go and see. It's not just today's stuff. It's, you know, how did the game start, and the origins, and the problem is the kids today, they don't take the time per se to go and, you know, who's Honus Wagner,
right?
You know, and if you're an old Pittsburgh guy, well, you'd have to be a real old Pittsburgh guy to know him in person. But you know, it's just knowing about the sport, and we've been to Canton before on the football side. And we wanted to come through here. I think this is just the nicest little town. They said there's like 1,800 residents in all of Cooperstown. It feels like just family, you know, and there's so much, obviously baseball is so interwoven into everything, but it's a nice little town. I thought the museum was very well done. I thought they had a nice blend of history and modern, and and that's not us testing the fire alarm, by the way.
Right.
So although we could do that as we wrap this up, we could go make a few noise. So
well, we're making a lot of noise now, and a whole national audience is
there you go.
Us, so
that's right.
That. You know, it's amazing though, Dale, when you talk about the history of the game. I covered the Detroit Tigers and the Tampa Bay Rays over at Tropicana Field one time, and I was talking to a guy named Mike Maroth who never heard of Mickey Lowledge. Yeah, and then I looked at Troy Versaville. Troy, can I tell you something? Mike doesn't know anything about Mickey Lowledge, and then Troy gave him a hard time. I said, kid, don't you know anything about the history of the sport that was created here for you? Yep. And, you know, I think by the end of my conversation with Mike Maroth, he knew who Mickey Lowledge was.
Well, and that's the sad part is the kids, they don't. I mean, I appreciate that the kids, you know, they like the sport. That's great, and I mean, seeing them play and all of that kind of stuff, I think is great. But you know, I kind of believe that you're going to go, you know, you're going to repeat that old stuff if you don't know it. And you know, there's a lot of history there. You know, why did they start this? Right. You know, whether it be the football, whether it be baseball. You know, why did they come up with this? And to me, I think that's important. I think it's good to know your history.
Well, I came to DoubleDay Field on my last day because after today, we're headed over to the Big Apple tomorrow just to spend the night there. Catch up with one of Candy's friends. So, you know, I figured we had 8 days here and we saw it real well. It's just such a laid-back small town like that. So,
I've been in every little shop. I got to tell you, they're very personable.
Yeah.
They were friendly. If you had questions, and it wasn't just shopkeepers, you know, trying to sell something. These were people that knew this town, why this town. They knew all about you know, when tournaments were coming and when other things were happening. It's a very, very nice. I tell you what, if you like baseball and have never been here, this needs to be on a person's bucket list, because you'll leave here with a much greater appreciation for the sport, just talking to the locals.
Yeah,
and then go in the museum.
Yeah, well, not only that, you'll leave here with a lot of memorabilia, so you better have.
That's true
you
too.
will spend some money here if you really want
some.
Well,
and that is true. And I love all kinds of, you know, baseball movies and things like that. And I walked into one of the shops, the Cooperstown Bat Company, and they're on the wall. And one of my favorite baseball movies is The Natural with Robert Redford. Well, of course, you know, Wonder Boy is the bat from the movie, and there it was. They had one, you know, of course they had many for sale. They have one less now. There's one in my car, because I know my son will just get the biggest kick out of that when I get home. So
yeah, we went to one, We Are the Game, right there.
Okay.
I bought from Cooperstown Bat Company. This time I decided to stay on the strip again. Either place you go, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, absolutely.
But when we talk about the Pirates representation here, the three guys that stand out to me are Willie Stargell, Roberto Clemente, Bill Mazeroski. I know there's probably other Pirates in here, but those
not
are the
a
ones
whole lot more. But yes,
those are the three main ones,
absolutely.
though. So, you know, how much did you enjoy seeing those guys here at Cooperstown?
Well, I'll tell you, twofold. One is obviously my appreciation for the history of the game, and obviously, you know, if you make it to the Hall of Fame in any sport, you know, you clearly were at the pinnacle of something.
Right.
The nice thing about those guys in particular is when I was a kid, you know, in the 60s and 70s, and was going to games, you know, at the old Forbes Field. You know, to me, seeing them is reminiscing about some couple great uncles who just loved the game, and you know, they were always there was always a game on the radio that they would be listening to, and they just got the biggest kick out of taking, you know, myself and my siblings to games. And I was at the second to last ever game at Forbes Field. Still have the ticket stub today. I have a younger brother and a sister, and they remember some of that stuff. Now they were obviously a little bit younger, but yeah, it's so when I see them, I'm seeing the Pirates of old, but I'm also reminiscing about, you know, a couple family members that obviously aren't with us any longer. But it's nice to remember. You know, I remember that uncle taking me to, you know, whatever game it was, and whether it was that or Three Rivers or whatever. So.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that Forbes Field. I know we were talking to it in the inside behind home plate, but give me a little detail. You said there's a home plate and a wall. So
yeah, well, that was well, as I'm getting closer to retirement, one of the things, you know, we've been building bucket lists like they always say you do, and I wanted to go see if there was any of that old Forbes Field still there, because the Pitt campus obviously has grown over time and taken over where the field had been. Well, when you get there, you find out that the outfield wall where Mazeroski hit the home run in the 1960 game, the World Series, that wall's still there. And they actually commemorate that wall. My understanding, I haven't done it personally, but it's on the bucket list. Every year on that date, the locals gather there and they do a radio simulcast or a radio replay of that game and that moment. So, and they do it at the wall right there on the Pitt campus. Well, as you follow the wall coming in towards third base, well, then it turns into these bricks that are inlaid in the sidewalk. And you follow that sidewalk and it goes towards a building. Well, of course, then you get near, you know, or you head towards what would be home plate, and the wall and the bricks turn to lead into a building.
Right.
Well, come to find out that home plate is still there. It's under glass in the floor of that building, whatever the building's used for. I don't know if it's teaching or offices, but they have a whole big commemoration of Forbes Field right there on the Pitt campus. And you can kind of, again, you know, reminisce as you walk around it. So
have you had a chance to see Pirates games in all three venues, Forbes Field,
I have.
Three Rivers, and now the current.
I have. And it's funny because, Three Rivers, obviously multi-use stadium. I think when you talk about Three Rivers, most people go, "Oh, Three Rivers, right? That's where the Steelers play," and they don't necessarily. It's not that they don't know. It's just it's not as preeminent a memory about the Pirates. Whether they were playing well or not could have something to do with that. But PNC Park, if you talk to people about the Pirates, they'll say, "Wow, yeah, I've been to Pittsburgh. I went to PNC Park," and consistently you hear people talking about how much that's one of their favorite stadiums in the country. And if you've ever seen a picture of it or been there, I mean, downtown Pittsburgh is outfield. It's the backdrop. I mean, you really don't get a much more picturesque view of Pittsburgh than sitting right there in the outfield or sitting on the third or first base line, the beer and the hot dog, and oh, look, there's Pittsburgh. And it's a really nice stadium to watch the game in. So we've been to, that's one of our bucket list items, is to try to get to every stadium in the country. But I understand that PNC is going to be a tough act to follow, depending on where you go. So.
Well, I've been to a lot of old stadiums that were torn down, so for me to go ahead and accomplish that on my bucket list might be another lifetime. One more baseball question, then I want to pick over some other sports. Okay, I'll make a prediction. Okay, I would find it hard to believe Barry Bonds ever gets into the Hall of Fame. That's subject for debate. Obviously, he didn't make it on the writer side. But one guy I can feel good about is Jim Leland. I think Jim Leland, to me, it's not a matter of if, it's when. So give me your opinion on Barry Bonds and Jim Leland. Then we're going to go over to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's usually where it gets me in trouble, is if you start talking about the Steelers. Jim Leland, I mean, he was so well regarded and so well respected that, like you said, it's not an if, it's a when.
Right.
Barry Bonds, I think I think his ability or not to get into the Hall has more to do, or at least has to a larger degree to do, with the whole atmosphere of baseball at that era. Because, not necessarily at the exact same time, but, you have the whole McGuire and Sosa and this and that, and there was so much controversy, for lack of a better term, about, well, how were people doing this and how were they accomplishing that. And my son and I just recently watched the movie 61, where Mantle and Maris were, trying to break, at that time, Babe Ruth's record. And, there was talk about, well, it was a different length of game, or there were more games in the season. And because of that, the commissioner at the time, well, if you can't break a record at the same point that, in this case, Ruth did, well, then there's going to be an asterisk. And I think that's part of where sports gets in its own way at times. They're very reverent about certain things, and then other things they're kind of like, well, you didn't do it the same way Babe Ruth did it, or whoever. And because of that, we're not going to give you the same recognition. And to me, that's sad. You either get records or you don't get records. And to me, that's a little bit of the Bonds side of it as well. Yeah.
Well, everybody will say you ruined the records votes, but I'll just add one thing before we can go over the Steelers. Barry Bonds did not win any friends with the media with his arrogant personality.
And that's very true. Right. And I think I think that even the media will admit to that. It's more of those who got along with the media, those that were sociable. Again, I referenced the movie. Mickey Mantle was very sociable, as portrayed in the movie. And of course, sports writers wrote all kind of glowing things. Maris, who's not in the Hall, who but did break the record, did not have a very good relationship, with the media. Not that he was standoffish. It's just, I'm here to play baseball, not live interviews. And so it kind of shows up all of a sudden.
Well, David Ortiz obviously did PEDs, but they loved him with the media, so we could probably get into a long conversation with that. So now, with that said, let's go out there and switch to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can tell you right now, when an organization has only 3 coaches in 3 or 4 decades, that to me is impressive. And I'm talking about Chuck Noll, I'm talking about Bill Cowher, and now Mike Tomlin. So just give me a few overall thoughts about the Steelers. You know, I was at that Super Bowl 43 when they defeated the Cardinals. What an incredible game that was.
You know, they don't make it easy on the fans at times, because they seem to love having the heart attack end of games on a lot of things. And you know, whether it's a Super Bowl and the toe tap in the end zone, or Harrison, you know, with his interception. And I mean, even he'll admit to you, you know, guys his size don't run 99 yards for any reason, except maybe one, when you intercept the ball and you run it back. So, but yeah, to me, I mean, and obviously I'm extremely biased because I'm a black and gold fan, but you know, the Rooneys, I think they set a standard for how they wanted to do things. They've stuck with it. You know, if you look at the history of Noll to Cowher to Tomlin, I think it's just over 50 years with 3 coaches. I don't know another sport. I mean, I think you wrap them all together. It'd be hard pressed to even find a team that had an owner that had been the owner for that long. So yeah, it's and they're not the only one. I mean, there's a lot of the old line, you know, teams that kind of follow the same thing. Listen, we're not going to change course every 3 years. I think too many of them get in a hurry to lift the Lombardi. And so whether it's going out and signing a bunch of free agents, and, you know, I don't want to say buy a team, because that's not what they're doing, but, you know, it's over the last couple of years you've seen that, where a lot of free agent movement, and next thing you know, they're in the Super Bowl. And that's fine. If you're good with that, hey, you're doing it. It's the ways the rules are. It works. It's fine. But you know what? My son, who's 33 or 34, and his kids, they'll probably be Steelers fans forever and ever. Probably not with just 3 coaches, but.
Well, I'll tell you what. I want to get to a couple quick points, and we'll go to the shift over to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Santonio Holmes, the most unlikely of MVPs when I walked in there. Yeah. And it's good that you've had Roethlisberger and Terry Bradshaw's cornerstone franchise quarterbacks. Chicago Bears haven't been able to have one of those. Yeah. And there are a lot of teams that go through the quarterback shuffle as well.
Which is a shame, because there are some of those historic franchises. The Packers, the Bears, the Giants, the Steelers. You know, you look at the old original NFL. I mean, there's a handful of teams, and to a large degree, most of them are run about the same way. I mean, subtle differences obviously being what it is, but you know, they kind of they stay the course. They don't panic. I mean, I got lots of friends who are Green Bay fans. You know, if you look at Green Bay, I mean, how many quarterbacks have they had? I mean, you know, Brett Favre was there forever. You know, Bart Starr was there forever. You know, now Aaron Rodgers has been there for a long, long time. You know, that continuity. Some of these owners, I think, if they got out of the way, you know, but it's their $1 billion. I guess they can spend it any way they want to. But at the end of the day, if you look at the teams who have the overall success, it's the ones that go, listen, I may be good at business, but that doesn't make me an expert at a sport. Go get the people who are the smartest, the brightest, the whatever. Let them run the team. And you know what? At the end of the season, the owner is the first one that gets handed the Lombardi Trophy. Just get ready to let your coach hand you a trophy. You know, that's my opinion. That's what they should be doing. But.
All right, well, 2 other points. Okay, then we go to the Penguins. Ironically, Steelers won the Super Bowl in my hometown, Ford Field, my own best storybook ending. And I'm going to tie that to the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers trained at the Pontiac Silverdome that week, a place that was known for the infamous coin toss. So what I want you to do, Dale, is I want you just to kind of put both of those two events in together, then we'll go over to the Penguins.
Sure. Well, I mean, you know, there's always, you know, I guess the old adage would be is, you know, if you can't be the guy at the end who's winning everything, well, at least you can be a footnote in history. And apparently, you know, because of us, we've changed the rules on how they do the coin toss. So if there's consolation, you know, it is what it is. You know, and if you listen to any of the coaches that we've had, at the end of the day, if that coin toss is what made the difference, they'll tell you, no, there were plenty of times during that game that, you know what, maybe we could have not even gone to overtime. That coin toss wouldn't have had an impact, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. On the Bettis side of that, to me, Jerome Bettis is one of those class act players. He was just the right guy for that blue-collar city. You know, he came in as a free agent, you know, via trade, but they fell in love with him. But you know, this is a town that comes out of the mold of, you know, Franco Harris.
Right.
You know, this is a team with Rocky Blyer that has, you know, is in there, and they appreciate the running game. You know, so and he had a personality. He came to work every day. You know, he wasn't as much as a superstar as he is. He didn't play that way. He played as, I'm a piece. You know, and him and Roethlisberger and the linemen, and he'll be the first to credit all these other people that, hey, you know what? If they hadn't done their job, I couldn't do my job. And so to me, Bettis is an example of really, to some degree, an era gone by, but he's classic Pittsburgh in that way. Very blue collar, very, you know, let's go and, you know, together as a team, we're going to do this. So.
Well, I've always thought Terry Bradshaw was a guy that I really enjoyed. He's done a good job with being a national TV analyst. Yep. Another guy, Charlie Batch, has done pretty well there.
Charlie Batch is broadcasting locally, so yeah, he's another one. Bradshaw was always my guy.
Right.
I mean, you didn't grow up in that era and not, you know, appreciate the guys with the cannon arms. I've always felt that Bradshaw never quite got the due that some of the other, I mean, because, you know, look how many times he battled Staubach.
Right.
You know, Staubach is thought of as this elite quarterback, which he is. But I also think that somebody ought to be going, wait a minute, Bradshaw, isn't he the guy that took him to 4 Super Bowls?
Right.
And, you know, unfortunately, when you have those conversations, there's people like, well, yeah. He was the quarterback for 4 teams that won the Super Bowl. But it's not like, you know, the first 2, he wasn't the predominant piece of the puzzle.
Right.
The last 2 they won under him, he was. You know, his arm really took off in those 2 last Super Bowls, or his last 2 Super Bowls. And, you know, to me, he again, blue collar, you know, but him and Noel didn't always get along, you know, but I don't know that the coach and the quarterback need to be best buddies as long as they're working together.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those situations.
Yep.
All right, and finally over to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Yeah, I guess the best way for me to summarize the Penguins real quick before we wrap up the broadcast is Mario Lemieux is Mr. Pittsburgh Penguin. And I say that because he bailed that franchise. It could have been relocated before, but once he got a handle of that franchise and Stanley Cup game. So just give me a brief overview about the Penguins, and then let's keep it focused on Lemieux before we call it a broadcast.
Well, I'll tell you that I think, well, if you're a local, I think they appreciate it more so than nationally. But I think people that are in that Western PA, Pittsburgh area, they understand what Lemieux did. I mean, here was a guy who had a contract, who, for all practical purposes, you know, that team was about to go under, which means, you know, he's going to be out the money, but he's like, no, you know what? I'm not worried about that. How do I keep the Penguins going? And so he just flipped the contract, became the owner, and just kept right on going, and kept that mentality. And you know, to his credit,
you know, when Sidney Crosby came along, you know, there was a mentoring effect to that. You know, and now Crosby's been there for, it seems like he's been there forever now. And, you know, but to some degree, Pittsburgh, I think, you know, and Lemieux being a perfect example of this, is these guys understand what it means to be blue collar, you know, lunch pail, go to work every day, you know, live up to a standard, and the town will love you forever. And whether it's, you know, whether it's the Penguins, whether it's the Steelers or the Pirates, I mean, to this day, you know, those players, they go anywhere in town, people go nuts. I mean, this is, not to bounce back to the Steelers really quick, but this year is the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception. The NFL made sure that the schedule worked out, that the Steelers and the Raiders are playing on December 24th on the 50th anniversary. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I hope there's a stadium still standing when it's all over with, because I think the fans are their heads are gonna go nuts. Because there are people to this day that will look at you and go, you know, I remember where I was when Franco caught that ball. Whether they were there, whether they watched it on TV, whatever it was. And to come back to the Penguins, I think the same thing, maybe to a little bit lesser degree, but, you know, every one of those Stanley Cups that they've won, I know people that are like, yeah, I remember when Sid did this, or I remember when Lemieux did that. And of course, they're not the only two players that have ever played. I mean, they've had I give the Penguins ownership a lot of credit right now. They've kept that line together. And I you know, I don't have any insights other than just I'm a fan, you know, who has an opinion. But the fact that I think they're trying to keep it all together so that when Sidney decides he's going to retire, they're all going to go off into the sunset together, and the next generation will come in, and Sidney will do for whoever that next person is the same as Lemieux did for Sidney. And I think that's just instilled in them. And obviously they're not all from there. I mean, very few of those people are from Western Pennsylvania. But I think when you get there and they come through the airport and they see the Franco statue, it's like, I think this place takes its sports pretty seriously.
Well, they're building a good tradition. I enjoyed the two Stanley Cup finals with the Detroit Red Wings and the Pittsburgh Penguins. But as we wrap this thing up here, Dale, you know, the one thing I notice about Pittsburgh fans, much like my Detroit area, is they're blue-collar fans. And I know that if you put together a good competitive product, they'll show up.
Absolutely.
If you go out there and produce a loser here, you're going to suffer that game. So. But I can tell you right now, and there is a pun intended for what I'm going to say right now, it's been a Grand Slam home run meeting you, Dale Zeller, here at the most unbelievable place, baseball heaven. Folks, this is the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Pleased to be joined by Dale Zeller, obviously, from the Pittsburgh area, and it's been such a pleasure. So, folks, if you want to go to our website, go to www.southfloridatribune.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Tribune South, but most of all, please, everybody, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Please subscribe, because we have a lot of great broadcasts here. We never know where they're going to come from. Hey, I bumped into Dale. We've had a whale of a time here talking to this guy, and we're both, you know, it's ironic with the two individuals that I've spoken with. I had a 10-year-old when I first came here, and I have a guy similar to my age, so it's easy for you and I to get more comprehensive intent because of our background and all. But Dale Zeller, I can't thank you very much enough for being on the Sports Exchange, our marquee program on the South Florida Tribune YouTube network. So please, folks, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com, see South Florida Tribune with the T and the palm trees, and hit that thing called subscribe. As I know, it's usually a red button, and let your finger do the talking so you can hear more like us doing the talking. So
that's right.
On behalf of Dale Zeller, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. And you never know, we're going to be popping up anywhere, whether it's here or, as I always tell a lot of people, we may be coming to your city. Take that from college. Take that from college football, because I know you guys have Kenny Pickett. Although, and I have to mention that real quick, at least he didn't have to go very far. all he did when he got
Well,
drafted by the Steelers.
that is kind of nice
Steelers.
when you can go on the other side of the building and go, oh, look, there's a quarterback. They
Yeah.
could use one of them.
Yeah, it wouldn't matter how big your gas prices were in that one.
That's true.
They could just do a couple of stats. But at any rate, as I mentioned, folks, please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, www.southfloridatribune.com, or Twitter @Tribune South. So, Dale, again, it's been a pleasure, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your trip.
Thank you. Absolutely.
And I hope you and your wife have an opportunity to nail down that bucket list, buddy.
We'll keep working on it every day.
You got it. All right, once again,
Thank you.
friendship shake. Here you go. Dale Zeller, Motor City Madmouth. We'll catch you the next time.